Welcome. Scott here. Here is a quick boss guide for the upcoming LUFENIA Plus event, Intersecting Will's Unshakable Conviction. The featured units are Edgar, Strago, and Locke from Final Fantasy VI along with 9 from Final Fantasy Type 0. This event also marks the debut of Edgar's LD. We will be fighting 2 Guardians which has 15 million HP each. They are immune to launches. The turn requirement is 60. The HP requirements is 10,000. Before I continue further, here is a small disclaimer clause for the video. The guide is written based on the time that the event was released for the Japanese version. Please do note that it is possible that the boss fight mechanics might differ when the actual event is released in global. Firstly, let's go through the LUFENIA Plus Orb conditions. The LUFENIA Plus will activate at the start of the fight and it is a non-cancelable orb. Unlike most LUFENIA fights, the orb for this fight isn't a fatal one. The countdown ability is METEOR++, where the boss will do an AOE BRV+HP attack and delete all your party's next turns. To uptick the orb you need to do either one of them. 1. Deal ignoring defense brave damage. 2. Deal melee, ranged or magic weakness damage. On the screen, I have listed down the list of ignore defense unit that could help you with the fight. They are Edgar, Strago, Locke, Noel, Machina, and Orin. Other units that have ignore defense in their kit are Zell, Ursula, Jegran, Jack, Emperor, Sabin, 8, Prompto and Shadow. Notice that both Edgar and Orin have a glowing aura. They have means of imperil weapon weakness damage. For Edgar, he needs to use his LD for the W weak debuff. The debuff will be upgraded to the weapon type imperil depends on the attack that he uses. He will imperil melee with his melee skills, S2 drill and EX chainsaw. He will imperil range with his auto crossbow and he will imperil magic with his royal shock LD or the special HP command bioblaster. For other forms weapon imperil, you can use Orin for melee imperil, Fran for ranged imperil and Hope for magic imperil. Irvine also imperils ranged but he is a bit dated to be used for LUFENIA content at this point of time. You need to have both condition uptick the orb, otherwise having one of condition fulfill will only freeze the orb. The fight is actually relatively easy that you shouldn't worry too much about the orb since it doesn't provide harsh penalties except deleting your next turns. Now let's proceed with some party setup recommendations. Recommended calls abilities. To ensure that you are able to constantly break them, it is important to inflict defense down debuffs. Example of calls abilities that inflict defense down calls are Ferris, Jack, Titus. As the boss has a huge amount of HP damage up debuff calls like Karasame, Gabrin, Ignis, Maria, and Fran are useful. Although a bit trickier to use, Aura type HP damage up calls like Queen, Sid, and Kimari are also viable. Edgar LD also offers 20% HP damage up aura. As mentioned in the previous slide, you can do boss no turns as long as you are able to constantly doing weapon imperil damage with Orin call for melee imperil, Fran call for ranged imperil and Hope LDCA for magic imperil. Next, I will be covering units that will be useful to handle the fight mechanics. Like other LUFENIA Plus events, it is always recommended to bring supports for their aura and buffs. They are Purim, Setzer, Agrias, Katesith, Queen, Ishtala, Bartz, Lena, Lyud and Sarah. As the boss can gain tremendous amounts of brave and if you are playing the non-delay game, damage mitigation is highly recommended. Options include Snow, Core, Gladiolus, Warrior of Light, Orin, Zack, 9 and Beatrix. For damage dealers, you can consider the following units with ignoring defense utility. They are Edgar, Locke, Machina, Noel, Strago, Sabin, Shadow, 8, Ursula, Jegran, Prompto, Jack, the Emperor and Zell. Locke BT Aura will allow everyone to hit for ignore defense. If you are bringing a counter-oriented setup and treat the orb as a normal part of the boss attacks, you can bring trap and units that deal off-turn damage. They are Ace, Vanille, Cater, Celis, Maria, Therian, Trey, Core, Leon and Garnet. Avoid bring turn hoggers for the fight as the boss unleash METEOR++, a variant that inflict a no brave gain field aura for 3 turns if a unit acts for 5 consecutive actions. On the screen, you will see a timeline showing the HP thresholds triggers that you need to watch out for. The LUFENIA aura and stats boosts are triggered at the start of the fight, 79% HP threshold and the 59% HP threshold. At the start of the fight, you receive a warning message regards to one party unit taking 5 consecutive actions. Avoid triggering it or the consequences will be dire. As mentioned earlier, the boss countdown ability is not fatal. It is an AOE brave attack and deletes your party's following turns. Upon triggering it, the orb will be reset back to 15. Technically, that is the boss key arsenal of HP attacks, otherwise it is pretty much a punching bag for you to fight. As its HP gets lowered, the boss will switch its program mode from Kraken to Marlboro and eventually to Ultima Weapon. The program mode is dependent on the color of the orb on the boss. With C90 awakenings have commenced, we are officially in garbage time. If you bring those units, you will have a much easier time as those units will have upgraded EX abilities that will amplify their HP damage. You might end up killing the boss while ignoring the boss mechanics. This fight can be completed with an auto plus team of Therian, Orin, and Lena. It can also be finished up in less than 6 minutes abusing Strago EX ability. I have shared the links of the runs in the comments below. Now let's proceed with the boss mechanics proper. Like the previous LUFENIA Plus fights, the boss will gain big stats boosts, brave damage, and brave gain reduction auras when you deplete their HP to a certain threshold. The thresholds trigger for this fight is at the start of the fight, 79% HP threshold and 59% HP thresholds. At the start of the fight, it will boost its defense stats by 200%. At 79% HP threshold, it will further boost its defense stats to 300%. The maximum brave damage reduction auras is 70%. The maximum brave gain reduction auras are 70%. To handle against the brave reduction auras, you can use brave damage up calls like Jack, Sephiroth, or bring a support that have brave damage up like Lena. Alternatively, you can also use the enchant and imperil strategy to hit the enemies for elemental weakness damage. As weapon imperil is one of the key elements to uptick to orb, they also provide a good source of damage boost for your party. If you have Locke with his burst aura will ensure everyone in the party constantly hitting ignore defense brave damage. Now, I will be covering the boss key mechanics in detail. I will be covering the METEOR HP variant attacks. Firstly, I will start off by covering on the more dangerous one, METEOR+. This will be trigger when you met when a single party member takes 5 consecutive actions. Upon triggering it, the boss will instantly warp its turn and use this attack. METEOR+ is a guaranteed hit variant of the METEOR. The attack will result the boss gain a dark blue aura for 3 turns where it will impose a no brave gain field effect. The no brave gain is quite a deadly penalty until that I couldn't find a fight that feature it. The countdown ability METEOR++ is an AOE BRV+HP and deletes your party's next turn. Having traps or counter debuff could help to negate the effect and minimize the boss consecutive turns. It is important to bring damage mitigation or break immunity so you can minimize the potential HP damage from the boss attacks. Other the 2 METEOR attacks, the other HP attack is the laser. The boss key feature is that it will change its moveset depending on the battle program that it had initiated. It will start off from Kraken program before converting to the Marlboro program and lastly Ultima Weapon. You can identify which mode that the boss is in from its orb color. The trigger isn't based on its HP thresholds but based on the number of actions along with the current HP threshold. On the screen, you will see a table detailed the moveset that the boss has. While in Kraken program mode, the boss is weak against thunder. While in Marlboro mode, the boss is weak against fire. Make use of those to your advantage. Now I have reached the last slide of my boss guide presentation. As usual, there are two common approaches to the fight. For the boss turn approach, you need to inflict a weapon imperil debuff, and I have listed down the key units. Do keep in mind of the 5 consecutive action penalty and you should be fine. The second approach is the hit and counter approach, where you make use of the counter units, traps units along damage mitigation. With the current power crept from the C90 Awakenings, you can easily blitzkrieg past the fight while totally ignoring the boss mechanics. The fight can be completed on Auto Plus with a team comp of Lena LD, Orin LD, and Furion LD. I have shared a link to the video in the comments below. Regardless, the fight is still of LUFENIA Plus difficulty. Please be mindful of HP and turn count requirements. I have come to the end of my boss guide presentation. Hopefully you find it useful. If you like the video, please give a like. Please subscribe to my channel for future gaming content. Good luck for the fight tomorrow. Bye.